Yep. And you should get the link. It should come up with the live and you click on it and then share.
Isn't there a section of live right there?
It's not showing yet.
Come on.
When do you want us to start?
I got excellent connection.
When do you want us to start the computer spilling, Joe? After we get this live going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we're running. Started streaming 9 minutes ago.
Well, then why isn't it showing up? Live.
You go to this site then.
Why isn't it showing up? Live. On YouTube?
So I went to my personal profile and then I went to my subscriptions.
I got you. So I need to switch my profile out.
Found it.
Oh, right there. Yeah, it does show up. Very cool. Okay, and then you share it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How do you
You hit the X in the top right, and then there's a share button below.
There it is. Thanks, buddy.
No problem.
Got it.
So would you just click on your Facebook or what?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I can see myself on camera. All right.
I'm gonna start recording on this. Yeah. I'm gonna start recording right here.
Okay, I'm gonna start recording right here. I am recording.
Alright. We're all live?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and welcome. That kicks off the official start of the ADHD Express podcast. Ben, we decided long ago to not tell people that is coming because it takes away all nerves and everybody smiles when it happens. And we take that 10 seconds of your face going, ah, and then we make a really cool reel with everybody who's doing it.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for having me. I've heard good things about the podcast so far. Brian spoke highly of it. Alex spoke highly of it.
That's awesome.
I'm
Yeah, that's
excited
right.
to
A
have
couple
an
friends.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So he's good buddies with Alex and Brian Gehek that were on the show.
Okay.
So yeah, so he's kind of had a little bit of experience. You didn't. Those ones haven't been out yet, so you haven't had a chance to see them.
Oh, cool.
They're still not edited.
I bet they're excited to see him.
Yeah, so we're a couple weeks out on editing, but we're getting there.
Cool.
We're getting there. Well, you guys, as always, introduce myself, Brian Carlson, the host of the ADHD Express. As always, I've got the brothers Osmond, Joe and Daniel.
Hey yo.
Thanks for joining us, as always, you guys. And my special guest, Ben Gochberg from AES. He is our cleaning, contracting, and I totally lost the word. Developing expertise. Welcome,
thanks.
Ben.
I'm trying to be an expert.
Yeah.
I think it's a lifelong process, right?
Well, they've actually stated it as 10,000 hours.
Is that true?
10,000 hours to have subject matter expertise is 10,000 hours.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. Wasn't that Gladwell, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the
yeah,
basketball
yeah.
player. We talked about this last week. That's really funny that he just knows.
Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell. I think there's been a lot of talk about whether or not that's real, and it's probably different from industry to industry, but it does take a lot of time.
So here's what it looks. So in the legal industry, it's 10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, like they count me as having subject matter expertise on home inspection and litigation as far as homes, because of the 10,000.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
once they hear that, then you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's subject matter expertise. So I think it's just, I don't know, again, I don't know who set that rule up,
Yeah.
but that is kind of like the guideline.
Yeah.
I don't like using the rule of thumb because there was that thing in Boondock Saints. They say the rule of thumb was because you could beat your wife with a stick as long as it wasn't bigger than your thumb.
Yeah, it's a Bible thing.
Yeah, so, you know. He's over here like, wait, what?
Lost.
That's why it's the ADHD Express.
Honestly, like I think you're right, because on a lot of the fact of becoming an expert at something, taking 10,000 hours, it's different for anything and everyone, but the overall breakdown on it, I think, is good because in all reality, to get to 10,000 years, it's still 5 to 6 years.
Sure.
Right, of doing the same thing consistently.
I had a recent conversation with a guy who is a former professor. He's retired now.
Hey, do you want to shut the AC off?
And he pointed out, we were talking about some obscure philosophical stuff that's recent. It was like published in 1995. And he pointed out that there's there's a need, especially if you're on the cutting edge of any field, to continue to
If you need
learn.
a drink, there's.
I might get a water.
I'm actually thinking I'm out of water today with your price.
Oh, then I do whatever is Natty Light's fine too.
I know. That's happened. That's like you joke, but that's happened.
That's great. Thank
The
you.
fridge is off. We forgot to turn it back. That's all right. We'll fix it later.
What's
Sorry
going on
for
in real
lying.
estate, Brian? Are you inspections this year? Are inspections up, flat, or down?
I'm up just because it's just me, because I don't have the staff that I used to have, and so I am still a couple of weeks out.
Cool.
And so, but I know industry-wide stuff is not moving as fast. I'm very fortunate to still be busy like that when there's a lot of folks that are not.
I've heard average time on market went up a bit, but
It did.
I didn't know if it was that significant here in Cache Valley.
You know what's weird? I still don't get this. So I've been doing this for over 15 years, right? We talk subject matter expertise. I still don't understand how some houses are under contract in a day in this market and other houses are sitting for over a year.
I think it's got to be about price point. Because
Price, location. I think there's even
Yeah.
more. I think it's a lot. Like there's been this house down here in Providence on, what is that, maybe 300 South? And it's been for sale for like 4 years. I don't understand. I mean, I realize it's kind of on a busy road, but like, what is it about that house that was 4 years?
Is it mispriced?
I think it was for sale by owner for the first two, and then now it's had a realtor on it. And so I'm sure it is probably just mispriced. But
That's what I usually see is people mispricing their property, or it's a niche layout or something, or it's like on the super high end or super low end.
right, which so for example, I've got a duplex that's been for sale for almost a year. And I mean, we barely even get showings on. I know my price is really high, and it's a super high-end duplex, which most real estate investors are not looking for high-end.
Mm-hmm.
They want some piece of crap that they can fix up with their own people.
I haven't seen it since it's been done. You'll have to show it to me sometime.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I would live there. It's very, very nice.
Cool.
And so, and again, I've kept my price high because like you can't go build that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't own that for less than what I'm selling it for. And so I will just sit there if I have to. I don't care.
Yeah, you don't have to sell it.
No.
But why would you get rid of a piece of real estate? It's not like it's going to be worth less in 5 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. Especially hopefully the way this election goes in a year or so, it's probably going to be probably going to go back up.
They're talking about dropping rates in September, right? I mean, if that happened, if we had like a 0.25% rate reduction, maybe 0.5% before the end of the year, I think Cache Valley goes gangbusters again.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
It seems like it's bursting at the seams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I talk to realtors that have 5-6 buyers that are all waiting because they're hoping for a rate drop. You know, so you know, and I actually had the development project that I actually had a verbal contract with the guy, but he ended up backing out just because all the rates that he was trying to get for his loans, everything has gone up.
Yeah, it's harder to make stuff pencil. I was having the same conversation this morning. I think there's a way to structure a deal so that you're giving away a little bit more equity to make up for the lost cash flow as a result of higher rates.
Sure.
Like I know that people want a cash on cash return that's comparable to what you can get in the market right now. But what I would rather have than a cash on cash return is a larger equity piece in a project that compensates for that lack of cash.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're going to stick $100,000 or $200,000 somewhere for 5 years and forget about it, don't you want exposure to the appreciation of the property anyway?
Yes, you do.
I mean, that makes sense in my head.
Yep, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of them are done. I know that's like, I mean, I've got that 40 in Layton that I've got a bunch of money on it. That's kind of how that's working.
Yeah.
It'll take a few years and it'll.
Those are good deals, especially if you can do sweat equity for them.
Right. Right. Well, those ones I'm just investing on. I was trying that for a minute, not actually doing any work on a property. For those of you who don't know, I flipped like 27 houses in the last few years and I just don't want to do it anymore.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
I'm happy with, if I can land 2 good deals a year, I'm over the moon.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to just go for one. If I could always get one good one a year, I was really happy, to be honest. Like that was not too much, but then it seems like, I shouldn't say houses, that's doors. Not houses. A couple of those were a 12-plex, and you know that's a little different than actually doing all the houses. But doors.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. I know a number of people are getting stretched thin, right? Increasing interest rates. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, talking to another friend of mine, a hard money guy, he's talking about how he's had multiple people just take the loss and walk away from the deal.
Jeez.
They've already put all the money in. So the way that works for people who don't know with the hard money is you go to your hard money guy. Hey man, I got this house under contract. I need, $300,000. I'm going to renovate it with 75 of it. And then, 90 days will pay back, right? And they get their 2 points and their 12 or whatever percent that the hard money guy is charging. Well, the thing of it is so you go in there and you do all that work. Well, then if the deal's not working out, you just walk away. Well, you lose everything that you put in. The work, the money, the parts, the materials. Your hard money guy keeps it. But now my hard money dude has got all these projects that are not done that he's like having to come up with money to finish, and because they just walked away. And so now he's not. You have to be in that position. You have to have a huge surplus of revenue because he has to be able to float that until it works. So you're like, it sounds bad, but the guy that in question has got plenty of revenue and it's not going to be an issue. But once things start moving again, he's just going to be that much richer because all these people put hundreds of thousands of dollars of work in equity and money into these houses and then walked away from them.
You know what that makes me think about? At 40, I'm thinking about this a lot more. I was one of those guys that kind of just put my head down and worked for 10 years when I turned 21. And I'm not sure that was the best choice. I mean, I had fun along the way, but there was a commitment to financial success in my 20s that I'm not sure now is completely justified.
Sure.
Because I look at it and I say to myself, isn't there an amount that I'm living off of eventually that is just enough? That's just enough.
Correct.
I don't know if I want to make more money still, so obviously I'm not there yet, but it shocks me that people will give their whole lives just to growing the pile, when I think if we all took a step back and identified it sooner, we'd be happier.
Yeah.
I could have been happier in my 20s and 30s if I just chilled out a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and it's all the different times, like I was not super career oriented in my 20s at all. And I don't know that was a bad thing. And then in my 30s I was, but then we all know what happened with that. I got busted and lost everything. So then I spent the last 10 years head down, working my ass off, trying to kind of dig out of that hole.
Sure.
Right. And so, I mean, again, could I be happier? Probably. I agree with you completely, but also you gotta live.
What were you doing in your 20s?
Just whatever, dude. I bounced. I think I actually spent 5 years working for Bed Bath & Beyond. Cool. That was it. Kind of. I mean, it was. I traveled, open stores, remodeled stores and stuff for them, and kind of still the construction thing. That's what I've always been good at. Did some sales, all construction related, previous.
Isn't it nice to get paid for knowledge and study for your hands?
It is, honestly. But and what's funny is like I know some people give me a hard. Well, guy, you really kind of had a hard time figuring out what you liked. Well, maybe all of the doing garage doors and electrical and building houses and commercial and all these other things was really good because I'm a super well experienced, very knowledgeable inspector, right? And I wouldn't have had that if I didn't do all those things.
Yeah.
So things all work out for and then it's funny, we would talk about this to my older brother. He had this job, he was in the Coast Guard, was a chief, and worked maybe 2 to 3 hours a day for many years until he retired. And then his buddy helped him get this civil service job, and he works 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. And it's just kind of funny. Like he did a really good job as far as like setting it up to where he does not work hard.
Yeah. I think eventually if people are looking at the situations, they want to structure their lives in such a way that they have more time flexibility.
Correct. That's what I've learned. And honestly, in the networking, right? Because you're a big networker, right? We're all into the networking thing. And we've talked about it on the show. I know a lot of very, very wealthy people. And the vast majority of them are not very happy. No. The vast majority of them do not live a lifestyle that I want. There's some that are killing it and they have a good life and I'm great and I'm happy for them. But like a lot of them.
Life in the States has gotten a little crazy. Yeah. Now, I don't know. Maybe it's always been like this and I just haven't paid attention to it before. But as I go other places in the world, I notice that the pace of life is slower.
Yeah.
Food quality is typically better. Yep. Typically people have more respect for each other professionally and they're not on top of each other all the time. Now, there are pockets, certain countries have some big problems. There's huge corruption problems in some parts of the world.
Absolutely.
There's huge problems with personal property. And we're very lucky to be in the United States with our legal system and the opportunity that we have here. But I wonder if we've become a little bit too focused on productivity.
And consumption. Productivity and consumption.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like I look at my kids, don't ever want to eat something that's not out of a damn package. Like it's something, dopamine receptor, whatever. I mean, we know a lot of the products in America have got addictive substances in them and stuff like that. So people keep eating the Doritos. I can't get away from them.
Yeah.
Well, even our produce, my wife's from Moldova,
Yeah.
and there's fewer produce choices in Moldova and all of Eastern Europe than there are here in the States. But I'll tell you, their cucumbers and their tomatoes taste way better
Oh,
than
sure.
our cucumbers
Sure.
and tomatoes.
Well, we're using stuff like that appeal. We're putting poison and stuff, like genetically modifying
Yeah.
poisons on stuff.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, the FDA, people are like, well, is it FDA approved? Who cares? That's like the famine disease producer of America. Like they want you sick, so then they want you eating their food, so you're sick, so they can sell you their drugs.
Sure. And Walmart, they would need a standardized product, right? If we're going to rely on these huge companies to give us commodities at cheaper prices, part of what we trade off is that these products are all engineered to look perfect,
Yep.
to be delivered on time, and they have to do it over these giant company footprints where suddenly their choices about quality become very limited.
Yep.
I mean, I can get a perfect looking cucumber from Walmart or any other grocery store, but it's not anything in
Like,
comparison to something you could grow in your backyard.
Yep.
Or something you might be able to purchase from a local producer.
Yep.
Like local beef. Do you buy beef locally rather than buying beef like from the
yes, so I have a
stores?
friend who has a ranch and he raises some cows.
That's the
And
way to do it.
very healthy, very happy cow.
We do that too. I would much rather purchase from a local operation that runs fewer head because I know that it's going to be higher quality
Yep.
meat than run over to the store.
We even started doing our own eggs. So we got egg layers. We talked about that. And then we are working on, I think next year, we're going to start doing batches of meat birds.
Awesome.
Too, and just start doing all that. Get 5 or 6 families to go in with me and we'll, raise 200 birds and then you have a butchering party.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just how it's supposed to be done. And like getting back to some of that stuff. Are you kidding me, dude? We started, I know this is a lot of the, I don't know, different folks are going to be like, you what? So we started drinking raw and pasteurized milk.
Oh,
Bro, you don't even know. Like we are on that path.
if that's what you want to do, I more power to you.
I mean, a lot of the pasteurization is really poisoning you and making it's not good.
I'm still kind of I'm a victim to convenience still.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's an aspect of my life where
Oh,
I'm
I don't milk
okay.
a cow. There's some people over here who milk the cow. I just go over once a
Okay,
week
there
and
you
buy
go.
milk.
That's good.
No, I'm not milking a cow. Sorry. I've done that before. I'm not doing that. I'm fine to I will kill some chickens and trade them if I have to. If it comes down to it, I will trade meat, vegetables, and stuff that I got here. Rabbits. There's rabbits running around here. I'm willing to do meat bunnies. I don't care.
When I was a kid, I picked eggs a couple of times from like a hot chicken coop in like 95-degree weather, and I swore to myself I would never ever have chickens ever.
Oh,
because
really?
I hated that experience so
Okay.
much of like the heat and the way they smell and they
Smells, yeah.
peck at you because you're just trying to grab an egg, But now I keep chickens.
Yeah.
We have a couple of chickens and they lay eggs, and we keep a guinea too, as you
Yep,
know.
yep.
Loud bird.
Loud bird.
But I like having wild things in the yard.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice
Yeah.
to have a wild bird roaming 100 yards around the neighborhood, and maybe my neighbors don't like me so much because of that, but we like it.
We tried the peacock thing for a minute. That didn't last. They're even
I bet they're
louder.
loud.
Oh god,
Yeah.
it was horrible. Although a friend of mine owns it now. Drew. His name is Drew Peacock. If you say that slow, it's really funny. That's the best name for a peacock. Is everybody getting it, or do I need to say it slower again?
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, by
It
the
was
way,
good.
if anybody hears snoring, I'm not letting out gas. This is Tommy right here.
Yeah, the
dog.
Tommy
snoring
Can.
next to me.
Yeah.
Tommy's sleeping. That's funny. We like having Tommy out here. He's a good fixture.
Yeah, and he's such a friendly dog. He's a very friendly dog.
Oh yeah. He always makes sure to say hello as soon as we get anywhere. He's
Mhm.
always the first to say
Tommy
hello.
is so happy to see. And it's funny, people are so scared. And I get it. He's a lot of dog, and I can't get him to quit barking. I got this old neighbor over, so I walk him every single day. I
Mhm.
take him on walks. And so most of my neighbors have realized that, yes, he's big, yes, he barks, but he's just a happy, friendly dude. There's this old man over here who every day he's just like, and I'm just like, oh, dude. I try to get him to give Tommy treats. He won't. He won't have anything to do with Tommy.
Is he sincerely scared of the dog, or is it just like he wants you
He
to
might
manage your dog?
That might be it. Yeah, that might. Honestly, that might be it.
That's that's not good.
Well, Tommy is a really good man. He stays with me. He just barks the whole time.
Sure.
And is like so happy. His butt's wet. Like he did to you. He ran up to you. He's just wagging his tail. And
It's just a dog.
yeah, he's just a dog. I know that one's just big, but he's a good boy.
So what do you guys want to talk about? I'm here for you. I'm
Ben,
on
well,
your
so
side.
why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do with your professional life and how you got into it?
Okay. Kind of the background is I got back from an LDS mission. I served in Toronto. I was a Spanish speaker.
Cool.
And about 2 weeks later, I walked into a Wells Fargo and applied for a job.
Okay.
And I was with Wells for 10 years. When I left Wells, I was either 29 or I had just turned 30. I was a commercial lender in the I-70 corridor. My area went from Winter Park, Colorado, down to Eagle and Gypsum. So
Okay.
I didn't cover Glenwood, but I had a counterpart that was covering Glenwood to Aspen, and I covered Eagle, Avon, Vale, Beaver Creek, those areas right there. And there were several of us that were in that market. When I first joined that work group, I was excited because it was more money than I had ever seen in my life, and they paid me to go out there for this promotion. And then I watched as the banking environment got more and more political. Their pressure was increasing dramatically on the work group itself. We went from, I think, 12 lenders in that work group down to 4 in the space of less than 18 months. They were either pushing people into retirement, or people were quitting, or they were finding ways to fire people. And I think all it was just a desire to manage cost of the work group, because during that period of time, if you remember the economy between 2010 and 2015, in that particular market, we were saying no a lot. And that was basically my profession, was how do I say no in such a way that we can still be friends after this, and maybe they'll come back to me when I can say yes again.
Right.
And that gets really tiring.
Oh, I bet.
And so anyway, in my mid-20s, I caught the vision that I needed to do something else. And I started working with a contractor out here in Cache Valley who was a good friend. And what attracted me to him is he was pretty rough around the edges. He would say things I would never say. He did things I would never do. And for me, growing up pretty conservative and always being pretty clean cut, it was just kind of cool to hang out with him. You know?
Right.
Like he had a very engaging personality. Now later on, he screwed me over a chunk of money and a whole bunch of other people out of a chunk of money, and it turned into a really ugly situation. But at the time, we were friends. And so I was financing using credit and capital to do flips here and in Weber County. And we, over that 10-year period, like between the time I was 25 and the time I was 35, I would probably averaged 2 deals a year. And a lot of those deals were really good. The first deal we ever did was a house we purchased in Ogden for $46,000. This was in 2010.
Yeah. I missed those prices. I used to do that too.
I think I paid the contractor $18,000 for improvements, and we sold it on an FHA loan 120 days later, the day that it was qualified for FHA financing, for $125,000.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And after that first property, I was like, we should do this all the time.
Right.
Why isn't everybody doing this, right?
Right.
And it was just before everybody with a 401k balance thought it was a good idea.
Right.
So I had the benefit of connecting with a really good real estate agent who cared about me as a person. His name's Lonnie McCulloch. Did you know Lonnie?
I did not.
He worked for Century 21 here in town for a while. I think he's still in Salt Lake. Great guy. He was older than me, but he'd been like a nuclear physicist, and he'd done all these other things in his life. He was a jeweler. He arbitraged rocks. He would do rock polishing and do jewelry and like sell them at trade shows. And when I met him the first time, I was so engaged by the fact that this guy could do like 5 or 6 disciplines at a high level. And he was smart. I was like, who are you? I just wanted to be like that.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I be more, I think the term, what I'm aspiring to do, what Lonnie, I believe, did, is he was a little bit of a Renaissance man.
Sure.
He was able to do several disciplines at a reasonably high level and adjust his life in such a way that it was super attractive for him and for the people around him. So I connected with him. he hooked me up with my first deal and then hooked me up with a bunch of deals after that.
Yeah.
And then I had a contractor who knew what he was doing, who had a crew that wanted to follow him and who were willing to be paid well for good work.
Yep.
And that combination allowed us to work together for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had picked up a couple of rentals. I knew I wasn't going to be a banker forever.
Sure.
So I was just socking money into savings, just like putting as much as I could into savings. I was well into six figures in income when I was 26 years old, but I had been living off of about $30,000 a year, and I had never lived alone. I had roommates for my entire adult life until I got married. So my wife is the fewest people that I've ever had in a living situation ever as
Nice.
an adult. Yeah, isn't that wild?
That's cool.
So
I
we
wish I could
always
say that, but my wife's multiple personalities kind of rear up every once in a while.
multiple people.
Yeah.
So when the environment got bad, I walked away from the bank at 30. I was supported by rental income, and I had a couple of buddies that I had met who were top performers in the network marketing space.
Okay.
I decided to jump in and rep for a company called World Ventures, which was a successful vacation networking group. And I had a blast with them. Made some money. There was one period of time in there where in a 30-day period, just to put it into perspective how hard these guys work, and you work this hard.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people out there that don't know
Yeah.
how hard network marketers actually work if you're doing it at a professional level. I did, I think, 125 meetings in 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of those were one-on-ones. So you do like back-to-back one-on-ones during the day, during like coffees, back to back. I mean, I was so hopped up on coffee all the
I'm
time.
sure.
I couldn't even
I
think.
couldn't even imagine.
And then in the evening, you go to a group meeting. So your sales during the day, you encourage them to invite people to a group meeting, and it turns into this giant snowball of energy and excitement.
Yeah.
And in the evening, you bring in a couple more people, and all of a sudden, you've got 4, 5, 8 sales in a day in your downline. And if you keep up that energy for a period of time, you're making some money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. Oh, dang it.
oh, you're good.
Sorry, everybody. That's not supposed to happen. How do I get rid of that now?
It's on the computer, isn't it?
Oh, it is on the computer. That's why.
Someone wants you to jump in their attic and look for a water issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so that was one of my cool. That's another. We were talking earlier about investors and doing multifamily. So this dude just through the network, he's a chocolatier in Belgium, buying multifamily here in Cache Valley. I
Really?
swear to God, I literally, when I do his inspection reports, I call him stuff like the chocolate house or the dark chocolate house.
Cool.
Yeah, just because it's. But yeah, I've never met him. Never even had a conversation with the guy. His realtor told him I'm the best. He hired me to do a home inspection. He's like, "Yep, that's my guy." And now I get an email.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm repping a couple right now that lives in Barbados full time,
cool.
and they're Bitcoin retired.
Oh, good for them.
Cool story.
So that's a real thing.
yeah, it happens. The rest of the story, just to make a long story really short, is that I lived off of $36,000 a year for this transition period
Yeah.
between the time I was 30 and maybe the time I was 33. Sasha and I met, my wife, we met during that period of time. We were introduced by our friend Eric on a blind date. He was the banker who was covering the Aspen market at the time.
Yeah.
He calls me up. He's like, "Come down to Aspen with us for dinner." He was actually in Carbondale. "Come down for dinner, and I want to introduce you to this girl." So I got to pre-screen. So I asked him for pictures, and I was like, "Who is she? Does she have a college degree? What's she doing professionally?" She was managing a Mexican restaurant in Carbondale at the time, and she didn't know that I was showing up to dinner. So she met me at dinner on a blind date, and we
Got married.
hit it off, and it was a great experience.
That's awesome.
So when I came out to the valley, my contractor buddy went nuts, took some money from people, and I had all these subcontractor relationships that were still kicking around. And I thought, it would be a real shame to lose this group of people. Because a lot of people had been relying on this guy for income. And I knew I was going to be okay. Like, I could have gone and gotten a job in some other market and probably made more money. But I realized that if I stood in the pocket here for a second, I could bring in all these relationships, and we could do a company that was focused on construction
Mhm.
and cleanup. And most of our cleanup focus has been in methamphetamine and mold.
Mhm.
But in the last couple of years, about half of our revenue is from general construction, mostly
Yeah, okay.
remodels, and we do some new construction. And then in the last couple of years, as a result of that, I've had some opportunities on the development side to lead a couple of deals. I just got my first big deal to the finish line, which was 26 units in Preston. And I didn't do that by myself. There were a lot of good people
A lot
involved.
of good people to help.
And those people around me that gave me that opportunity to lead that project, first of all, it ensured that we ended up with a good decision. We made some good decisions through that
That's
process, and people are going to make money as a result of that. But more than that, it allowed me to learn a lot of what I needed to know in a very short period of time, and it just bumped up my confidence level.
Sure.
And now I look at opportunities like that, and I'm like, I could go do this. I could really go do this a couple of times a year. Because there's a lot of, and you know this maybe better than I do, here in the market, in the development world, people want these deals to fit in this nice little box of, here's the amount of cash I need out of the deal, here's what the rate of return needs to be for this to make sense. But because so many of the larger developers are focused on making these deals fit perfectly, there's all this underserved market on the outside where these deals that are workable, if you were just a little bit flexible, you could book these deals, but they don't, when I say they, I mean they broadly.
Sure.
I'm not talking about anyone in particular. A lot of these guys are at a point where they don't have to do the work.
Right.
So I'm 40, I can still hustle.
Yep.
I still want to.
Yep.
It's interesting, it's exciting.
It is exciting.
When I get to the point where it's not exciting anymore, maybe I'll go do something else. But right now it's super interesting, and that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's cool. And it is, and you're right. That's kind of why I started, I was doing inspections all the time, and I was just finding myself in opportunities where nobody wanted a house, and everybody was like desperate to unload them. And so we were like, I'll take that one. I'll fix it. It was kind of the same thing. I'm willing to go to work and work the weekends and sweat equity, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, things that look like opportunities now might not look like opportunities in 20 years.
Well, and it's also, I think there's the differences of all people, guys. There's one, my Honeyville flip I offered that. It was a $50,000 property, seller finance. It was like the easiest deal ever. I did put a lot. I bought it for 50. I want to say we put like 60,000 into it, but sold it for 177. So I mean, that is not a bad flip, dude. And I remember going to a bunch of my friends. Man, you really ought to consider this. And I had a couple of them go out with me, and you're an idiot. What are you thinking, man? I would do. And they all just
people look at the damage and they get scared of it.
Yes, they do.
And I think it's also something to do with risk perception. People see oh, well, what could go wrong? Well, there's a lot that could go wrong, but most of the things that could go wrong are fixable.
Correct.
And if you have a good judge of how much money it takes for those things to go wrong, how much money it takes to fix, you know what your margins are going to be in most cases.
Yeah.
It's not what drives me crazy is that there is now there are groups of people who are trying to flip property by doing exclusively cosmetic improvements.
Yep.
So they think by putting in high-end cabinets or high-end flooring or making certain paint choices that you're suddenly going to bump up valuation by $50 a square foot. It has nothing to do with that.
No.
Realtors don't like to talk about it, but I know, and you know, that there's an average price per square foot. When you look at a property square footage, hey, okay, it's underpriced by this amount based on the average square footage. It means I've got this much to work with. And you just do the reverse math.
You do the reverse math.
And that's it.
That's how I did that 55 flat when they were telling me the numbers that they were looking at. And I was like, well, again, same thing. I just kind of went, what's your price per square foot? Oh, okay. And then I kind of reverse engineered from there. I'm like, well, if you're going to have to put in this much money per unit, that's this much money per square foot. That puts your final goal here. Can you still make money?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're dead right. That's...
There's a lot of hesitation right now to spend money out in the market on construction.
Big time. Builders are not building spec homes.
Yeah.
They're not really buying lots unless the lot is sold.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
But for people with capital, I'll point this out to our audience, for anyone that's listening. I mean, I'm trying to finish. Should I say this out loud? Yeah, I'll say it out loud. Who cares? Most of the people.
There's only like 3 people online watching.
People
it. I
that
think
are
it's us, our phones.
Yeah. People that are competitors to me probably won't listen closely enough to hear this, but when I'm finishing a basement, an unfinished basement, I'm trying to finish somewhere between $55 and $65 a square foot. If you consider that the average home per square foot is selling for $175 a square foot in Cache Valley, am I costing that person any money by finishing a basement at that
Not
price?
even a little bit.
Absolutely not. They are making a fortune.
Yep.
Because I made the time to provide the labor to do it, but I still see a lot of hesitancy.
Oh yeah, and you will. But that's and I feel like after 15 years of home inspection, a lot of that is just the human nature you cannot avoid.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people who, well, for example, actually this is really funny. When I was with Bed Bath & Beyond and we were opening the Bed Bath & Beyond in Cache Valley, which is now closed, they had all this market research where they analyze your clientele. There's what's it called? There's a name for that. Anyways, it's just market research, right? Market analysis. The Cache Valley consumer will buy, a $30, $40 blender every time it breaks for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
or a toaster.
Or a toaster,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll just go buy the cheapest, crappiest, even though it's going to break and they know it's going to break, instead of going out and one time spending $300 on a Vitamix that's going to last you 30 years.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the difference with your consumer in here and a lot of other small places in rural America is they will just, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. Consumers also, I think if we looked at our own spending patterns, we would all identify certain pockets of spending that are completely unjustified. Like mine is, I enjoy eating out with friends. But I spend a lot of money on eating out at restaurants or having drinks with friends or whatever. But that's a lifestyle choice that I've made as a consumer. And if you look at any life, most people have like one or two things where like, yeah, this purchase choice could have been done more efficiently, but it brings you joy. Knock yourself out.
Are you talking about a 1970 Blazer on 40-inch mutters?
Sure.
In the garage that gets driven to or 47 firearms. You only shoot one at a time, but he got 47 of them.
Heck yeah. I mean, it's your thing, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. Like I said, the cars and the guns, as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, cars and guns, like, yeah, all of them. I don't need them. We think about that all the time. When we talk about, I paid $1,100 for that Blazer when I was 16 years old. We talked about it because my wife is like, you literally don't ever touch it. We talked this year for the cruise in. We're like, we could probably take it to the cruise in and drop a sticker in it for 35 grand, and it'd be fighting over it.
Yeah. Probably.
And yet, do I do that? No, it's still sitting in the garage.
Well, there must be some emotion tied to it.
Oh yeah,
makes you want to keep it.
Yeah,
right?
it's my favorite car. That first gen Blazers, those are cool. They're round. There weren't very many of them, so only at the time when they were brand new, only 211,000 people could own one.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been 50 years, and more than half of them are gone.
Yeah.
And now you can't own one.
Going back to what you mentioned earlier about we were talking about being fiscally prudent.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked a little bit too hard on removing emotion from a lot of my decisions, and now I'm realizing that I went too far.
Oh yeah, so you
like
keep
I'm
anything
too
sentimental like
disconnected.
That. Yeah.
If you saw my house, Brian, it would freak you out. I am so Spartan.
Well, that's not a bad thing. To be honest, like I like that. I think that's great. I'm ashamed of myself sometimes with how much crap that I have. I have another junkyard full of cars too, right?
I didn't know you had more cars.
Oh yeah, there's like another dozen that aren't even here. Not to mention I have a building that I've probably got 6 sets of tires in. Oh yeah, there's a little shed over here on the other side that probably has 8 sets of tires.
But isn't that your thing?
It is my thing.
That's
yeah.
kind of your invention.
I have enough. Like I picked up this. Basically, it was a 1950 Willys that's been sitting in a field, just a basket case. Well, and I happen to have another wrecked Jeep, and so I'm going to take all the cool newer parts off the new wrecked Jeep and put them on this old 50 Willys. And like when it's done, it's gonna be one of those things that's awesome, and it's probably gonna cost me like $1,000 because I have tires, I got shocks, I got one of my buddies drops off. He got new wheels on his truck and literally drops off these 18-inch wheels with 33-inch mutters, and he was like, well, I didn't like these. And he's like, I just figured you guys would have them. I literally came home and they're sitting in front of my garage. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? He's like,
It's a nice friend.
it is a nice friend. I know, but and now they're just in the building, and it's one of those things like people are like, how do you have it? I just accumulate. I don't know. It is my thing. I like that stuff.
Well, and you've traded a lot of favors over the years.
I have. That's
And
valid.
When
That's valid.
when you look back at your behavior in the market, in your life professionally, what I see from the outside is, hey, this is a guy who not only knows his stuff and not only completes a transaction, but you make an effort to care about people, and you push a lot of good out into the world.
That's right.
Which is it's enviable. That's something
Thanks,
I'm
man.
trying to do too.
No, and I feel like you do a good job, but you just got to try to help people. I want
Yeah.
people to do well. Are you kidding me? With this thing, as we've been doing, people are like, oh, it's so cool. Watch it. We try to help everyone. Everyone's got their business, and we're like, hey, we can spend 20 minutes and tell you how to help your online presence. Like, that's no big deal. I know that other companies out there are charging you $10,000 to do that, but we just want people to be successful.
Yeah.
And usually people want that back for you. It's kind of the BNI, givers gain mentality.
Yeah.
I
Well,
want people to be successful.
we want local people to be successful too.
Right.
You know, I
Very
don't
much
have
so.
a problem. There are a lot of great people that work for huge companies,
Yeah.
huge national
Yep.
or international companies. They employ a lot of great people.
Yeah.
But when I think about what I would change about our economy nationally and our economy locally,
Yep.
I want to support the person where I know if I'm using them for a service or a product, that is feeding their family or improving their life.
Yeah. Putting braces on a kid.
Yeah.
Making a car payment.
Whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Because if I give another $5 to McDonald's doesn't care if they get my $5. But some small privately owned restaurant will care. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Very true. And people don't realize it because these, like our parents way back in Nevada, they used to own a pet store, right? And they were really good and successful for all the way up until PetSmart showed up. And that competition, it's crazy how much that competition can take out small mom and pop shops every time.
And why does the bigger company win? Because
Convenience.
pricing, convenience, maybe standardization, maybe selection. I mean, there's some, we're going to have to make choices as a society about whether or not we value local communities or whether or not we value giant national companies. Because you can't have the cheapest price and the best selection if you want to keep your dollars local. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
Interesting to think about.
It is interesting to think, and it's just, and that's as we're kind of doing this podcast. That's what we're just trying to help people think about stuff, right? Because like what you said, as far as like it is hard with all the big national chains, but there is still incredible opportunity everywhere for small stuff. Not to mention the fact, actually, right now is a great time because of all the boomers that are retiring. There's like 12 million businesses that are going to just go away.
Yeah.
Like there's 12 million businesses that are for sale, and people don't buy them. Like instead of buying $600,000 house, go buy a $600,000 business that makes you $200,000 a year.
Absolutely.
Like there are options out there, opportunities. We've had a podcast with George, which I think Haley just clipped up, so that one's going to get released here in the next 2-3 weeks. But where we talk about that, and Daniel pulled up a couple different websites with all these businesses for sale.
George Daines?
No, George. No. Yeah.
Lusk?
No. Bingham. George Bingham, a
Oh,
fabricator.
George Bingham. Okay.
Yeah, he's a fabricator that we know. Yeah, I know, that's funny how there's a lot of people. I don't know. I don't actually. I've never met George Daines. I don't know him. He's not in my network.
Yeah.
Daines.
He's a big family name around here.
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah. I've got friends who run with him. I just haven't interacted with him yet. So, yeah, his daughter's the mayor of Logan City, Holly. That's the danger. That's the George Daines.
Oh. Wait, I think we used to live over by them.
Yes, they live up in the Hillcrest area.
Oh,
We
yeah.
used to go over to their house every weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Who, Holly's or her dad's? George's.
Holly, or, George. I think, George and his wife.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think he's gone now, isn't he?
I don't know.
No, he's not.
No, you're thinking of Wilson.
No, it was the Danes. They own the bank here in town, the big bank.
Yeah.
It was the parents who started it. We used to go over to their house, and then they have a bunch of kids. They kind of took over everything.
Yeah, they've done a lot of good for the community here.
Yeah.
Cache Valley Bank, they were the ones that did that deal on Oneida.
Yep.
And I've got a lot of good relationships with a lot of local bankers, but man, they do some things that are so cool.
That's good.
I hope that they stay local. I
Well,
hope
what do
that,
you mean? What they do on Oneida? Just put the new branch in?
no, they put that apartment building that we did. They did the lending on.
Oh,
that
I didn't know that. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was a cool setup. A lot of something that a lot of people don't realize is that if you can include the landowner and the land in the lending for these deals, they'll collateralize the land and count the value of the
Oh,
land
that's cool.
towards the down payment,
That's cool.
which reduces the amount of cash you have to bring into the deal. I knew peripherally that was available, but locally, at the time, I think Cache Valley Bank was the only one that was valuing it that way. And
Interesting.
it was really fortunate that they did.
I've interacted with some really good people at Cache Valley Bank.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So how about this? So now, and I mean, are we going to get in trouble if we talk about his meth cleanup business? That won't kick us off.
Yeah,
So let's
I
talk
know.
about it, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about that, you guys. So one of the things that I happen to do with Carlson Inspections is I am a third-party tester. So I can come out to your house and test for mold, radon, and methamphetamines, right? And for those of you who don't know, in fact, we talked about this with Will Lambert's podcast. He was from Arizona. Like, what city was he from? I mean, it's literally where they based Breaking Albuquerque. So where they based Breaking Bad. And he was like, he goes, I don't understand this meth testing. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, we don't meth test in Arizona. And I'm like, well, that's because it's, why would you just assume it's there, right? Because it's like everywhere.
There are states that have not done any legislation.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
It's terrible for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty toxic. I mean, it's all made of artificial stuff, and then the people who are smoking it are inhaling it into their body.
Well, but if you're a
Yeah.
responsible drug manufacturer, and as long as you use brake fluid when you make your meth, then you can stop whenever you want.
Okay.
Just get your joke. I did a joke. Thank you.
I might steal that one.
You should.
I'm gonna steal that one. That's great.
So have you ever seen the list of the different chemical compounds of what they use to make methamphetamine? There's always a little bottle of brake fluid in the background.
Ammonia, aluminum, ephedrine.
That's why I can't buy more than one box of stinking Claritin or anything. Yes, I can only get one at a time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now most of our meth here is getting imported at this point.
Oh, is it really?
There's not a lot of manufacturing that's going
Is that
on.
the stuff coming out of Mexico that's brown?
I haven't seen
You heard about that, right?
in a while, but
Oh,
yes,
okay.
I'm familiar with that product. And then I'm aware that there's some manufacturing that's still a problem in Western Colorado.
Okay.
But as far as what we end up with here in Cache Valley, I don't know where people are getting that. I'm not that into
I'm sure it's
the
just
market.
the little, because they use the shake and bake method now. I'm sure it's a
Mhm.
small batch.
It could be.
Yeah. In fact, that could be kind of romantic, right? Boutique-y.
Right.
I'm a small batch manufacturer of meth. We keep them all
I
underneath.
only do this for my friends. Give me the money though.
Oh no.
I'm sorry. 'Cause, right, like we had the dudes from the Bear River Bottling Company on here. They talk about how everything is small batched, right? Not just because we see small batch.
Yeah.
That's how you advertise your meth. Small batch.
Yeah,
Boutique.
a boutique meth shop.
Oh no.
Really shouldn't be laughing. It's like it's funny, but it's so. Here's one thing. A lot of people have always given me in my profession. So I choose to laugh about the horrible stuff. Now you can either choose to laugh or you can choose to cry. You can choose to get angry and hateful. So take your pick, and you can judge me for laughing if you want, but I don't like angry, hateful, or sad.
And you can go through stages. I mean, it's okay to like evolve in the way that you view situations. I know that there's some people that I can't talk about certain things with just because they're not emotionally mature enough to
Yeah.
have me joke about it in front of them.
Right.
But there's other audiences where it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we used to, for those again with the inspection stuff, I used to do a bunch of continuing education classes for realtors, and methamphetamines was one of my topics. And the funnest, and it's totally, it's just a setup, but like I don't know if ever, and you can steal this one too. I had a little glass case.
Oh, you
and
told me about
I put
this.
a needle and I put some pop rocks in a baggie, and like I would go out and I'd pass it around to people, and like everybody would freak out. It's so funny. Be like, oh yeah, we found this on a cleanup project. Look, and everybody's like, I'm not touching that. Like one of Robert Brown. Dude, he got so pissed off. So Robert Brown's a mutual friend. He's a broker for Cornerstone Real Estate. I keep trying to get him on here. I think he'd be fun.
Mhm.
But we were doing a continue. In fact, this is also with Travis when he was still back there. So again, kind of people that we know in our group, in our BNI group. So we're doing this methamphetamine class, and I had the bag of pop rocks, right? And I was like, and we were talking about it. I'm like, and you guys are in luck. I was like, on this last cleanup, they actually found some, and the cops let us keep it. And Robert like literally flew out of his chair, and so Robert Brown he's a bit tall like you guys, but he's like super muscular,
built.
very very athletic,
Yeah.
very very fit. And as he stands up, he like launches this chair across the room, like because he's pissed. He's just like, boom, the chair goes flying, and he's like, you can't bring that in here. And then it was funny. So Travis is another friend of ours who is a paramedic. And he was like, hang on, let me see that. And so everybody like calms down because Travis gets involved. He takes it and he opens the baggie. I kid you not, sticks his finger in there, rubs it in his gums. He's like, shit, that's real. Dude, it was so funny. So funny. I mean, we're mixing drug references here. This is like, oh, none of this is accurate. But for people who don't know, dude, that was the best one I've ever pulled off.
You are brave. I would not pull that prank professionally, but that I can see how that's funny in hindsight.
In hindsight, at the time, it was honestly, every person in the room was a personal friend, and like I've been doing business with for years, and so no, it was I don't do that often. That was the one that I did because I felt like I could get away with it.
Sure.
And I did, and it's fine. I still work with everybody that was there. They're all still homies. It's all good.
I taught classes for a couple of years too,
Yep.
And it's a great way to meet realtors and get in front of people. And you know, it's so interesting. It's an old topic now in Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, most realtors who have been around a while are aware
Pretty
of
schooled,
meth
yeah.
law.
Mm-hmm.
But it shocks me how many new people every single year have either never bumped into a meth contaminated property or don't know the laws around
Yep.
it, and it creates a lot of stress.
Oh,
people,
so much stress.
People get really worked up about it.
What I don't understand is the folks that bail. You know, they're in a budget where they're buying an older home, maybe a little bit distressed, and they find meth and they just panic, and they hit the streets running.
Mhm.
And it's just like, okay, 1 in 10 houses in the state of Utah is contaminated.
Absolutely.
We can clean it up. So why would you run from this one just to find another one?
And this is recreational use. Like we're talking about something that pops over 1 microgram per 100 centimeters
Yep.
squared, where I think you've made this analogy before. I might have stolen it from you
Yeah.
actually.
The
It like
aspirin.
equates, yeah. It's like taking an Advil and crushing it up and spreading it evenly over a football field.
Yep.
Like that's the
200
amount of-
milligram Advil. That's 1 microgram per 100 square centimeters.
It is an incredibly small amount of chemical. So you pop over one microgram, you're technically out of compliance and you have to do formal cleanup and it goes through a bureaucracy and all this other stuff. But in most cases, we have all been exposed to methamphetamine walking into property.
Every hotel room you've ever been in, it's got more than one.
That probably.
Most of your rental cars.
Probably.
Like, I mean, like, let's just be.
Yeah.
But most of us have never felt the effects. Or if we felt the effects, we blamed it on something else.
Mhm.
And we didn't realize it was related to methamphetamine. But for kids, it's a big deal.
Right,
Like,
crawling on the carpet,
little
rolling around.
people, it could be a threat for.
Yeah.
But most of our property here in Utah, as you know, it's recreational use. We don't have a lot of labs popping up.
Nope, not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they learned it's better to do it in an RV. Shit, they made a movie about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or the shake and bake method. So the shake and bake method is they do it in like a bottle, and they just have to keep agitating it, and you have to keep venting it off to get the pressure out. Otherwise, it blows up and burns. And so there's just different ways of doing it now.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a nasty drug though. Don't ever try
No.
it, but it is. I've seen some people do crazy stuff when they're high on methamphetamine.
I actually just did a home inspection for a police officer, a female, and she was relating an encounter with a dude. And she said when she hit him with the taser, like, she didn't even faze him. She hit him and he was going through him. And he said he looked down at it, and grabbed him, and yanked him out.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh,
no.
so then we step it up a little notch to the old SIG? Like, what?
Yeah.
Wireless hole puncher?
We were cleaning a property one time in Central Ogden. This was years ago, and we were inside the unit. We had secured ourselves inside the unit because we had had a hard time keeping people out of the unit from off the
Oh,
street.
dude. Yeah.
While we were standing in there, a guy like breaks the window from one side of the building, and another guy is banging on the door, like trying to kick in the door from outside to get back into the spot that they've been squatting in for weeks or months or however long they've been there. It makes people do scary stuff.
Really crazy, scary
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I had one. I guess it's all fine now. I had an apartment building that had like a fire escape, and unbeknownst to us, there was a couple of junkies that figured out that if you wait for everybody to go to sleep, you can go into the common area of the apartment building, get into the fire escape, and you got somewhere warm to chill.
Mhm.
Dark, it's warm, it's private, you can shoot up. after we figured it all out, as I was looking around, I'd find where they'd stuff their needles into like every little nook and crevice that you could find in that area. But I had a tenant go up and confront them at gunpoint, and somehow they took the gun from him, beat the living crap. I mean, broke his legs, threw him down a flight of stairs, like just horrid stuff, man. Horrid stuff.
Yikes.
So it does make people do some crazy shit. Well, it changes the way the synapses in your brain connect and fire. Like they don't even know they're losing their mind. They don't know. It's like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like forcing yourself. Yeah, it's.
Well, a lot of them are up for days, and then it's like,
Yep.
no sleep,
Yep.
already off. Like,
Well, and it's also the same people. Like you talk to all these cops around here, and like they know who these people are. They're picking them up in the gutters, every other week, and can't do anything about it.
Well, we have a bad habit as a community of not being able to talk openly about some of our problems, and our drug problem here in Cache Valley. You don't see it very often.
Oh, it's here.
It's not like you drive down the street and you see somebody bent over swaying on fentanyl, but the problem is much larger here than people
When you talk to
realize.
the EMTs and the paramedics, and they are like, "Oh yeah, dude, there's so much heroin running through North Logan. Like apparently heroin is huge in North Logan and Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell, really? Like, how is it that the paramedics are talking about the heroin epidemic and yet it's just there?
yeah.
And like even meth is still a thing. Like I remember one, and I think this might have been previous to us knowing each other, but it was a super nice house right up here on the bench in Providence, like a very nice home. And I showed up to do my home inspection, and I'm doing the thing, and the lady comes ripping in the driveway in her Escalade and almost hit me, right? And she just ripped into the garage, and I was like, that was weird, right? Well then, and so as a home inspector, you guys, I'm kind of like a detective, right? My job is to just look at details. Well, it doesn't shut off either. So I happen to take in some details on this Escalade. Every wheel's been curb scuffed, cracks, dings, nicks. She's hit every corner. I mean, like this is a new car that has just had a 30 teeny tiny little oopses, right? Which is Ben knows, he's over here smirking like that is a sign.
Yeah.
That's a person who's not with it, right? And the way she just ran into the house, and it was really weird. So then I was like, okay. So I kind of gave her a couple minutes, and then I went and started knocking on the door, right? Nothing, ring the doorbell, nothing. Well, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, she comes out, and I could tell she was high as a kite. She's just so happy and like, but dude, the pick marks,
man.
all of this stuff, right? It's the meth mommy diet. She's skinny and, and cleans. The house is all clean, and like, that was her deal. And then I was like, the people showed up, the buyers, and I'm like, I think we should do a meth test here. And they're like, Providence, Utah?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
1 in 10. 1 in 10.
Yeah.
And it was really high. For a recreational user, it was high.
Yeah.
And the husband, because I live in the neighborhood, the husband tracked me down. It was like, hey, I just want you to know, had this excuse. And again, it was the same excuse. Oh, she
You're
falls down the
circus,
stairs.
man. You're
Yeah.
circus.
Yep,
Like
yep.
you're not passing judgment on
I don't
people.
care. I just do a test, bud.
I bump into people every single day in the same capacity, and it's not like I'm like, wow, you're a bad person.
Right,
That's
no.
not even a conversation.
Nope, not a
Yeah.
thought.
And frankly, I've had my own issues in my personal life where I've made bad choices
Haven't we
before,
all?
right? So how am I going to hold this human being accountable more so for something that's just more apparent?
Yeah.
Their chosen problem happens to be methamphetamine. Maybe my chosen problem is something that makes me look good still, right?
Sure. Well, there's also the problem of like the success, the money.
Right.
People who work so much and run their businesses so much to the exclusion of all else, where their spouses leave them and they,
Yeah.
all that kind of
Destroy
stuff.
your families. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about balance. I see a lot of people are out of balance, and you can blame that on substances, you can blame that on philosophies, you can blame that on activity choices.
Yep.
But I'm more focused at this point in my life on trying to get back to what real balance is, and I'm redefining that every year. But I think
Dude.
that
And I feel like the older you get, the difference. Like right now, you mentioned it earlier. It's time.
yeah,
I don't really care to have. I mean, and we all know, like everybody at least. So I've scaled my business down a little bit, make more than 6 figures less a year than I used to, and it's fine. I'm okay with that. It's just more we're still kind of trying, but like it's the timing that you want.
Yeah.
Money gets less important, and time gets more important.
it's the only resource you can't get back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can always go work and make more money. I can always go flip more deals and do more stuff. That's not the issue. But like, I got a 16-year-old, I got a 9-year-old, I got a 20-year-old, man. Like they're gone. My 20-year-old's out, like he still spends time with us. We have a wonderful relationship, but like, And even my 16-year-old, like a lot of times we go to do stuff and she's got work or she's got a school thing or you don't get that back.
Yeah. And it shifts culturally from generation to generation, right? Like my dad had different circumstances in his life that caused him to make different professional choices and put his priorities in a certain way, in a certain alignment, just like mine are. Our lives are very different because we grew up in different time periods and had different opportunities, and we saw the world differently, and that's okay. Like I am okay not fitting in with your culture in the same way that I don't fit in with someone else's culture. But all of these choices, if we have some basic values that are all the same, I think we all line up and we do good things for the community by sharing those basic values.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I know what those are. I kind of think I know what they are, but
well, it's funny how that also changes, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because there's different times in your life when you feel like you got it all figured out, and then you like all of a sudden promptly are like, well, maybe not.
Yeah. I've accepted that I know less at this point in my life than I ever have before, which is kind of exciting.
It is. I always feel like that, to be honest with you. That's a big thing with me, is like every time I learn something else, I'm reminded of that which I don't know. So
it's the way to be, because knowing nothing is the best. Like that's what the Delphic Oracle said about Socrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was the wisest man because he knew that he didn't know anything.
Right.
Being able to grow and to learn is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the community around you, because when you are growing, you also desire everyone around you to grow.
right.
Yeah.
Which, and then also when you're growing, it's really hard to see people that refuse to grow that are stuck and trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the traps become readily apparent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They really do.
I've noticed more and more traps over the last 5 years that I didn't know existed. That they're out there and you bump into people that are so stuck in the addictions of status or money or of value systems, belief systems that they want to change, but they just won't let themselves. You know, it's hard.
It is
hard to watch.
It is hard. Which is kind of where, again, we come from with the ADHD Express, you guys. We want, like, it's easy to change. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not easy to change, but it's easy to take steps to change, right? Like we've talked about that in the past. Like, okay, if your fitness is not good, I get running 10 miles is not going to happen. I get doing pull-ups isn't going to happen, but walking to the end of your driveway and back is.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Have you read Atomic Habits yet?
No, I have sat there and used the clip. I've referenced it a
That's all
bunch.
you need.
I know. I've like done a bunch of research on it. I need to probably sit down and actually read it. We've talked. That book has been mentioned 5 times in here.
Yeah.
I think it can be summarized in a couple of sentences, but basically the premise is that you're trying to place things in your path that make your desired habits easier.
Yep.
So if you want to be more consistent about going to the gym, make the trip to the gym easier by packing your gym bag the day before. Put it in front of the door so you are compelled to move it.
Well, not only that, a step further than the psychological event, buy you a fancy gym bag and some kick-ass gym clothes that you look banging in.
Yeah, make yourself feel good about going to
Right.
the gym.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's basically the premise is make the acquisition of good habits easier in some way.
Yep. And start small, because you can't do it all.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you want to talk about on meth?
Man.
Anything else that you want to cover?
Dude, that's honestly been like an hour podcast. We probably need to wrap it up.
That's already
That's
been
an
an
hour.
hour.
It's been an hour.
Every single time, everybody's like, "What are we going to talk about for an hour?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll have to shut you up."
We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
really fun.
A lot of my network guys that I can just, which is you and Alex and Brian, guys that we could just sit and have this whenever we want, you know. And so we absolutely will, as we do these things. We're going to try to set up some panels. So it'd be kind of cool to do a panel on here with me, you, maybe like Robert, and we talk about how people can get into homes, right? Where our get rich slow scheme of getting your first rental and like the hard way of doing it. Or
Robert needs to speak out loud more often. That is a guy who's got a lot of thinking in his head that doesn't come out of his mouth.
because he doesn't want it to make him look cocky.
Yeah, I
Are
think
you kidding
so.
me?
I
He
think
bought
so.
a new truck and he got it to look exactly like the old truck, so people didn't know it was a new truck.
I appreciate
Because he doesn't want people to be like a stumbling, but he doesn't want to be a stumbling block.
Yeah.
Where people are like, "Oh, look at him! It's
Yeah.
easy for him." Like,
Yeah.
right. Well, if it's
Humility.
easy for him, then go be an 18-year-old who's really, you guys. I am Sorry.
Yeah,
I gotta forget a disconnected phone thing on the computer. That's why my phone is muted, but my computer is not. So I
Oh, that's good.
apologize
I'm
about
not
that.
sensitive to it. Yeah,
Um,
Robert's super humble. I look up to that guy.
Yep.
He's easy to underestimate.
Very much so. Very much so.
Awesome.
Well, guys, appreciate
Okay,
the time. I
yeah.
gotta go trash out storage units.
Ooh!
Yeah.
Make sure you take a video, put it online. Those are always fun.
Maybe I will. Thanks for taking the
If
time.
you find any bags of
Appreciate it.
cash, I left one in a storage unit over there.
I would actually really appreciate a bag of cash at this point in my life.
Wouldn't we all? That's awesome. Well, with that being said, you guys, thank you for joining us on the ADHD Express podcast. If you haven't already, now is the time to reach down here. There's somewhere on this page is a thing that says subscribe. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Coolio.
All right.
All right.
And then stop that thing.